Guess who ended up with the federal police indictment against Flávio Bolsonaro? This guy is really unlucky, isn't he? It ended up with Justice Alexandre de Moraes. The federal police investigated and indicted Flávio Bolsonaro for the crime of slander against Lula. This went to the Supreme Federal Court, and by random draw, through the distribution, it landed in the hands of Minister Alexandre de Moraes. What did Alexandre de Moraes do? He summoned the Attorney General to give a statement within 15 days. What happened? Flávio Bolsonaro. He made a post saying that Lula was a supporter of terrorists and drug traffickers, along with Lula's government, and he posted this on his social media. This ended up there. Through the Ministry of Justice, in a criminal complaint where the federal police investigated and concluded that Flávio Bolsonaro committed the crime of slander against the President of the Republic. This ended up in Minister Alexandre de Moraes' office, and Alexandre de Moraes has now notified the Attorney General. Here, look, Moraes gives the Attorney General's office 15 days to state whether Flávio slandered Lula or not. In other words, the Attorney General will say, in his opinion, whether Flávio Bolsonaro committed the crime or not against the President of the Republic. The crime of slander carries a small sentence. From 1 to 4 years, it's a small sentence. But when it's a crime committed against the President of the Republic, there's an aggravating factor, so the sentence is a bit higher. All right, let's see what the Attorney General says. Me, if you think about it, the Attorney General might see that it wasn't slander, it was defamation, which is a little less serious, you know? But let's wait and see what the Attorney General will say now. This development is very important because we are on the eve of an election. And it's important for the courts to make it clear how far a person can go, because otherwise the courts will lose control over these attacks from both sides. So, this clarification will be very important on the part of the Federal Supreme Court. Even to create a barrier there, which maybe the main court that should create it might not create, which is exactly the TSE, the Superior Electoral Court, to prevent this kind of abuse. Right? Freedom of expression in Brazil is broad, but there are limits. There is censorship, which is what? The rights of others, insult, slander, defamation, incitement to crime, threat, that's a crime, and there is no freedom of expression for that. So we have to make this very clear, especially now close to the elections, so that there aren't so many abuses. Isn't that right? For me, he did commit it, especially because he posted it on his social media, and his post was shared thousands of times. So that's even more serious, and he has to be held accountable for it. But that's just Tico, right, guys? Actually, I want to know where the money is. Where did the movie's money go? I want to know about that. Oh, Andre Mendoza. For God's sake, nothing at all so far. Waiting for what? To destroy evidence? To pressure witnesses? To coordinate testimonies? Is that what you're waiting for, Andre Mendoza? Because for God's sake, what's fair for one has to be fair for all. Where is it? Where are Daniel Borcaro's millions? Stolen money? Stolen money? Where are Daniel Borcaro's millions from the money he stole? That went to the movie and that didn't go to the movie. Where did the money go? That's what I want. That's what I want to know. Why? Meanwhile, Eduardo Bolsonaro, who doesn't have a job, who gave up a salary of almost 50,000 reais here in Brazil in February or March of last year. He's there living a life of luxury, living in a 6 million house, and he was at the Brazil game yesterday. The ticket, 180,000 reais for the ticket. Who is paying the bill? Huh? Guys, look here. What shamelessness. Shameful. Let's see. Did Borcaro pay? Eduardo Bolsonaro watches the Brazil game in a VIP area where the ticket costs 180,000 reais. His appearance in a luxury area comes amid questions about how Eduardo Bolsonaro has supported himself in the United States since 2025. Here come the Bolsonaro supporters. Here comes Andrea. Neymar paid. Lie, Neymar didn't pay anything. Neymar never said he paid anything. That's just nonsense. Let me ask you, was it Daniel Borcaro who paid the 180,000 here? Because money doesn't grow on trees. If it did, there would be a tree. Everyone would have a money tree at home. It doesn't grow. Who is paying for this? Eduardo Bananina over there in the United States, who is paying for the also fugitive Alexandre Ramaj over there in the United States. I've always told you from the beginning, we have to find out who is funding Eduardo Bolsonaro's lavish lifestyle in the United States. If we find that out, we'll find out who belongs to this criminal organization and where they stole the money from, which we already know. From what everything indicates, Daniel Boccaro, from what everything indicates, is paying the bill and the money that was supposed to go to the movie. It seems it went somewhere else, actually. We already know it went somewhere else. It went to a fund in the United States in Texas where Eduardo Bolsonaro lives, actually in a 6 million real mansion. And the owner of this fund, the person responsible for this fund, is Eduardo Bolsonaro's lawyer, Paulo Carlisto. And to this day, they haven't accounted for the money that was supposed to go to the movie. Where's the financial report, people from the movie? I ask you, who paid for the ticket costing 180,000? For Dudu Bananina in the United States, where he doesn't have a job, he left his job here in Brazil where he used to make 50,000 reais a month almost. Who is paying for the house in Texas, also a little house worth 6 million reais, and all you have to do is pull one thread and the whole thing unravels. Oh, and there are people who say, no, I support the Bolsonaros because they are not corrupt. My dear, either you're really dumb or you have some kind of problem, because if this isn't corruption. Because I've already told you, for you to earn your salary, look, you have to work, otherwise you don't get paid. Where do these people get their money? And I'm not talking about a little money, I'm talking about a lot of money. For God's sake, right? Stop being a fool. Meanwhile, there are people who are against ending the 6x1 schedule. Who, Andrea? Flávio Bolsonaro. Flávio Bolsonaro has already stated that he's against ending the 6x1 schedule, but he doesn't work. He's a senator, earns almost 50,000 reais a month, not to mention the other perks, right? Fuel allowance, suit allowance, housing allowance, office budget, the parliamentary quota, amendments. Yeah, I'm not talking about millions. The guy doesn't go to work, and he's against ending the 6x1 shift for you, the worker. Look here, people, for God's sake, this just won't do. 43 absences. How much would Flávio Bolsonaro earn if he got paid under the slavery pact? Guys, what is this? The slavery amendment, Andrea PEC 7x7x-0. Is that what he's talking about? He is in favor of a PC, a proposed parliamentary amendment against the PEC to end the 6x1 schedule. Then they presented the PEC, known as the slavery PEC, or by some also known as the 7x0 schedule PEC, where you only get paid for the hours you work. How much would he earn if he were under this PEC, which he supports? Not nearly 50. He didn't work like in a month, 30 days he should work. He only worked 15 days. How much would he earn? What? Because their pick works like this. In this system, you will show up to work. The boss will say, no, today I don't need you. No, today I don't want you. No, you don't have any rights. You're stuck there. The day he needs you, the boss says, no, you can come. I need you. Just for 2 hours, you work 2 hours and then go home. And here, look, he works. How much would he earn? He would end up without a salary. And it's against the end of the 6 days on, 1 day off schedule. These people are such a shame, guys, for God's sake. But meanwhile, the market, Faria Lima, is already giving in and already realizing that Lula is going to win for the 4th time, because they were hoping Flávio would take off, but Flávio is just falling apart. First, it was about the issue. about the revelation of the audio where he was demanding money from Daniel Volcaro, even though he said he didn't even know Daniel Volcaro. And then he was demanding millions of reais from Daniel Volcaro, although they got over 60 million reais from Daniel Volcaro stolen funds. Then he dropped in the polls, and now comes this other blow from Michelle Bolsonaro, exposing him losing votes among women and evangelicals. So he's just going downhill. Faria Lima, the market, and others now see Lula winning for a fourth time. So what are they doing? They're already getting closer to Lula to try, like, since we're not against him, let's just join in, because what else can we do? The right, the center, and the far right can't even come up with a candidate to challenge Lula, so there's no way. This actually came out in O Globo. After Flavio Faria's decline, Lima is already starting to treat Lula as the favorite and is trying to get closer to Lula. Because they're seeing that the way things are going, Lula will win in the first round. That's the reality. You can write it down. Lula, four-time winner, first round, that's it. There's no way around it. These people are vulnerable. There's no way. Let's check out some quick reactions. And don't forget to hit the like button. It's really important. Let's watch the video from Zaratinho, the federal deputy, talking about the 6 days on, 1 day off schedule issue. And then I want to comment on it with you. Pay attention here. Take a look.
First, I think it's a big step forward for us to be able to guarantee everyone 2 days off per week and a reduction of the work week from 44 to 40 hours. Do you remember back in '88 during the Constituent Assembly, that's when it was reduced from 48 to 44? It's been 38 years, and in these 38 years, we've had huge advances in technology. Increase in productivity. Somehow, this increase in productivity has to result in an improvement in the quality of life for people and families. But we also have to make all the necessary adjustments to ensure that the economy keeps functioning. So our concern, the government's concern in particular, is with the issue of small and micro businesses to ensure that they have the conditions to survive with this change, right? Because large companies, they will adapt. First, I think it's a big step forward for us to be able to.
I also think it's an important step forward. You, as a worker, having the right to 2 days off a week, just 1 day, that's really not enough. It's really not enough. No, it doesn't work. You just get more tired. When you only get 1 day off, you have to do everything and run errands. So you're even more tired the next day. So you really need 2 days to actually rest, at least for real, honestly, because on the other days, you have to take care of things at home. It's true. You have to do laundry, clean the house. And then the next day, that's when you actually get a chance to rest. And guys, nothing's going to go under and no one's going broke. That's just nonsense. When the 13th month pay was established, the barons, the elite, they said Brazil would go bankrupt if there was 13th month pay, this and that, all just nonsense. No one's going to go broke, no. Now we have to stay alert because this resistance movement from Davi Alcolumbre shows who Davi Alcolumbre really is. Davi Alcolumbre, president of the Senate, is holding back the constitutional amendment so it doesn't start going through the Senate. And all of this, according to Globo itself, is because he wanted Lula to protect him from the federal police, who are investigating him. Because Daniel Volcaro himself turned him in the latest plea deal, which wasn't accepted because he's protecting other people, in which he said he paid 155 million reais in bribes to Davi Alcolumbre. He went to Lula, and Lula said he wouldn't interfere with the federal police, and whoever was involved would be. From then on, he switched sides, the guy. He put Lula's veto of the sentencing law to be overturned. It was overturned, and the sentencing law was enacted. It became law, and the reduction of sentences for the January 8th coup plotters for everyone, including Bolsonaro, became law. Then, when it was time to apply the law, the Supreme Federal Court suspended the application of the law because a direct action of unconstitutionality was filed before the Supreme Federal Court. So, until the final ruling on the sentencing law, which was approved, its application is suspended until the Supreme Court decides on this situation. In fact, very likely, Alexandre de Moraes should bring this before the full court in August or September for them to decide whether the sentencing law is valid or not, whether it is constitutional or not. But Davi Alcolumbre made all these moves so that Lula's veto would be overturned in the Senate, and then he made all the moves for Jorge Messias to be rejected. In over 100 years, it was the first time that someone nominated by the President of the Republic to be a Supreme Court justice was rejected by the Senate. Why? Because Davi Alcolumbre wanted to show power to Lula, like, look, if you don't help me with this situation at the federal police, I'm going to make your life difficult. He approved some budget-busting measures, creating expenses for Lula's government without a source of funding. Totally unconstitutional. It was all just going along with the crowd, creating expenses for the government without having the source of revenue to pay for those expenses, and that's unconstitutional. This will go to the Supreme Court, which will overturn everything since it's not allowed. Whenever there is a bill or a proposed amendment to the Constitution that creates expenses for the government, whether municipal, state, or federal, there has to be a source for where the money to pay for this expense will come from. It has to be in the project, to be approved. If it doesn't have it, it's unconstitutional, and he did all of this to get it approved. It was approved because he wants the government to establish some kind of protection for him, and the government is going to do that. And now the goal is to hold it back, to prevent the progress of the constitutional amendment proposal already approved in the House of Federal Deputies, which establishes the end of the 6x1 schedule. He doesn't move it forward, and he's the only one who can. He has to start the process for it to be approved, and he's using this to try to blackmail the Lula government. So this movement is also important because we can see who is who. Davi Alcolumbre, who claimed to be a Democrat, right? Claimed to be a good guy and all that. Who claims to care about the public interest is really just trying to protect himself and the Lula government. Because pretty soon, if he's not careful, the federal police might come knocking on his door. And if things keep going the way they are, he'll end up in jail. And he's trying to blackmail Lula's government, but Lula said he won't accept any situation like that and that he won't interfere with the federal police in any way. Interesting, isn't it? Like the live stream, because when you like the live stream, YouTube recommends it to more people. It's really important for us to be aware of that, okay? Leave your comment. It's really important.